Hello and welcome to 108 Healing Senses podcast. Today I'm really happy to introduce Jamie Nicholas. Welcome. We were meant to be on TikTok, but technical difficulties has led us to YouTube. So thank you so much for joining me today, Jamie. And I found you on TikTok actually, and it was a really refreshing opportunity to see someone like yourself, very honest and open and candid about your experiences, and also the direction that you are taking your awakening and direction with. So I suppose for you to introduce yourself, like, who are you? What's your path been like up until this point, and what's the path that lays ahead for you? What is it that you feel like you're here for
Yeah,
and can
so
share
I
with the
think
world?
that has changed drastically in the last kind of 6 months. So prior to the last 6 months, I would have told you that I'm a seven-figure business owner
Mm.
that was doing 100K months, and now I'm quite proudly officially unemployed. I burned that business I didn't burn it to the ground. I've kind of handed it off to um a colleague, and it just got to a point where I just felt like I was completely on the wrong path, and I guess that's what spiritual awakenings do to you. I had complete kind of ego death and dark night of
Mm.
the soul, to the point it literally forced me to my knees in the praying position. Something felt very I wouldn't say biblical, because I'm not really a religious person, but my relationship with the universe now feels a lot more like God. It feels like I'm
Mm.
being repositioned and called to share my message, to share my experiences. And I've kind of been into spirituality for a very long time. Haven't
Yeah.
always lived it. The human condition gets in the way from time to time. But you know, very interestingly, because I kind of look at my path and I think, well, that was really interesting that like my whole bookshelf, I've got a whole section on Kabbalah, for example. I
Mm.
discovered that I grew up on a council estate in Kentish Town and came out of school 16, not really knowing what I wanted to do. And again, up here, I know we spoke off camera about authenticity. So you've got the
Mm.
Ghostbusters, you've also got an Oasis album, and that Oasis album I went and picked up that Oasis album before my GCSEs. That's how much I didn't care about school. I didn't, I just knew there was something bigger and better
Mm.
inside me than, and I excelled in art and English, interestingly, which were the two subjects that I was genuinely interested in. And,
Mm.
again, I think it's a trait of ADHD. Is that we hyper focus on the things that we like, and then we kind of discard the rest.
Yeah.
And that was 100% true for me. I got into retail like all of my friends did, went and worked at Marks and Spencer's. And then also, because I lived on a council estate, I sold drugs for about 6 years, to the point
Mm.
that I became the environment. All of my friends, drank and sold drugs, and I, just followed suit. I
Mm.
worked out from an early age I could get my nights paid out for. And then it kind of escalated from there, and I was then earning more money doing that than I was my job, and then kind of took my job for granted, to the point I got fired. And
Mm.
then what you do is you get this kind of unbearable ego, and that whole kind of life is people just, can we swear on this?
Sure.
Yeah. So it's just people effing each other over. That is the whole kind of drug game. And it's
Mm.
just based on deceit. And then you just think about all of the energy of, and it creates a whole uh kind of cycle of despair. So
Mm.
like looking back on that energetically, it's just like, okay. And it got to about 2009, and my life was a complete mess. I was out for 2 days, I was in for 2 days, out for 2 days, in for 2 days, because you have to be in pubs for you to be able to make money, etc.
Mm.
I had a girlfriend, yeah, and then you start to attract people that like you because you are that person, that you know and up until that point, kind of, I think up until, 97 to about 2002, I was the nice guy that came last, and I then had and again, it's very interesting on the paths that we have these life events that kind of change us. 2002 to 2003, I had my heart broken, and then decided to become like everybody else. That's when I then decided to start selling drugs. I then started to I started to go to the gym. I started to buy Hackett. I started to buy Gucci and Prada, like all of my other friends that appeared to be happy, and then became quite promiscuous. And I can't, one, I don't know how I did it, but two, I also, looking back, didn't hate myself more in those times than I ever had. Like, and on the surface, people are like, oh, like, like the lads and stuff, and deep down, I always knew I was different. I couldn't stand the small talk. And looking back, I think I drank and took drugs to numb what I was really feeling. I was always a very deep thinker, a very deep feeler. My mum was always very emotional. She would often have a drink and psychoanalyze everyone. So I think it's hereditary. And growing up with my mum, I was always quite an emotional person, and still am, and I embrace that more than ever. Because again, we're taught as men that, that we shouldn't cry, that we shouldn't talk about our feelings. And I, as you've seen on my TikTok, I've spoken about everything that I've been through recently with spiritual awakening slash mental breakdown. And it's like everybody, says, oh, if you're going through mental health, let's talk about mental health, but nobody really talks about their mental health. So I was like, I'm going to talk about my mental health. And and you'll be alarmed, when I was on Instagram, I had no less than 13 people inbox me and say, I'm so glad that you posted that. I'm also going through something. And that then opened them up, and I was like, oh, I'm onto something here. How can I reach even more people with this? Just by, one, being myself, two, being vulnerable. And then, again, as I said to you earlier, I think we're now, as the introduction of AI comes in, it's the authenticity economy. It's about people helping people with life experiences. And I think, some people are have lived it, that then are able to give back to maybe then help other people up the ladder. So, from 2002, as I say, had my heart broken, then went through up until 2009, and then my mum kind of rendered me homeless, and she moved up to Scotland. I was seeing literally 7 different girls at that time, and I ended up getting with the one person that I could move in with, even though I had a girlfriend of 4 years. That would have been the natural succession, that we would have kind of moved in together. But our needs met. She needed somebody to look after. She'd just come out of a broken marriage. I had just been made homeless, and I needed somebody to look after me. But what that did is created a
trauma bond.
Exactly. So codependency and trauma bonding. And I didn't realize that until, one, I started to go out with, because what I did then, from then, she then falls pregnant within 3 months of us being together, decides she wants to keep it. Found out that she would never be able to have children. So again, it was like these miracle children. We eventually went on to have 2. So again, then you're no longer the most important person in your world. And for me to be in such an egoic life, for a child to come along, then you have to sort yourself out pretty quickly, because you're then. And I literally cried all the way home from the hospital, because I was just like, I don't even know how to look after myself, let alone another human being. And in a lot of ways, my marriage was just an extension of parenthood, where she just picked up from where my mum left off, because I outsourced all of my finances to her. So again, that created, and it's because I didn't trust myself, and I don't hold it against that person. I would rather her make the decisions and do the right thing, because I was in a terrible pattern of going out and, you know, blowing all of my money and then, you know, not having any, like, because the way that I'd programmed myself, I would drink, take drugs, drink, take drugs, drink, take drugs. So that then became less and less, but you know, once a human being comes into the world and you're then a parent, it then became, instead of it becoming every weekend, it then became kind of quarterly. And it wasn't until 2017 I then started something called the Miracle Morning. It's by Hal Elrod. My ex-wife, she was heavily, well, I wouldn't say heavily, for a few years from 2015 to about 2017/18, she was into network marketing, and they're massive into personal development. So her upline recommended this book. And because I'd kind of, in 2009, when my life was most chaotic and I got into Kabbalah, I did Power of Kabbalah 1, 2, and 3, and I'd learned this new, they call it technology of the soul. Some people call it a cult, some people, you know, call it a religion. And they say to you, you know, don't believe a word we say. You apply these tools. If they work for you, amazing. If they don't, discard it. So I did, and my life started to change. And it teaches you cause and effect, teaches you about the 99% and the 1% reality. And like that, we, you know, this 5 cents reality, which now is being spoken about more and more. It's almost, so Kabbalah is almost like The Secret, but all of the spiritual side of it, where The Secret is almost like Kabbalah for the layman's terms, the you know, like the tangible stuff. And it's exactly the same philosophy of, you know, what you attract, what you, so we're 100% responsible for our lives. So once I understood that, I was like, oh, so I'm creating this. So then you then are more choosy about your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. And then, you know, and whilst I had that that knowledge, I didn't, it wasn't until I discovered the Miracle Morning that I then kind of said, right, I'm going to commit to this. I read the book within 2 days. We went to Sopwell House at a spa hotel, and and it's not normal for me to read books, and I just picked up this book and I really resonated with it. And then it really puts pressure on you once you finish it to actually start it. And I'm quite a naturally early riser anyway, so I didn't find it that difficult. So it's like these 6 things that all successful people do before 8 a.m. So it's life savers. So it's S for silence, A for affirmations, V for visualizations, E for exercise, R for reading, S for scribing, which is essentially journaling. And what I then did is I started, so to hold myself accountable, I documented it on Instagram stories. So I literally was able to change my life by applying all of these things. So I was like 24 stone. I went down to at 17 and a half before COVID. And then also through the personal development, I then realized the codependency, the trauma bonding. It was a book called it's the if anyone ever wants to start in personal development, this is the perfect place to start. It's called Good Vibes, Good Life by Vex King. It's white and it's got gold lettering. In fact, I've seen it on TikTok Shop, and it's cheaper on TikTok Shop than it is on Amazon. And that is the first book that I really was like, this is everything that I've ever wanted to say, to get somebody to, one, start thinking about their circumstances, two, to start making positive changes. And it just laid it out so simply. And I was just like, this is such an amazing book, to the point I've sent it to so many people, along with the Miracle Morning, but a lot of people don't keep it up. So I did 1,000 days of the Miracle Morning. It went from 30 to 90. From 90, then I carried on until 1,000. And I think then I wouldn't say I fell off. Some aspects of it I still do now, but I'm not regimented as I was. But I also learned how to generate you know, I don't know if you know about Abraham Hicks. I also got into Abraham Hicks through, you know, because when you start to read books regularly, you then like, you know, you discover The Secret, you do Think and Grow Rich, you do, you know, you do the rounds, then you discover Abraham Hicks, and then other law of, Neville Goddard and Bob Proctor and people like that. So yeah, I then looked into the vortex, and it was like, okay, so you create this feeling of euphoria, and then you take aligned action from that feeling of euphoria, and then that's how you're able, then it's like positive momentum. You're either in an upward spiral and you're in a downward spiral. So that comes down from the food that you eat, from the thoughts that you think, the stuff that you're exposing yourself. So I then, I stopped watching Netflix, and I swapped and this is one of the biggest tips I could share with people, anyone that wants to change their life. And everyone's on their own paths, but if you swap your entertainment time for education time and watch things that are going to feed you as opposed to make you fearful, then that changed everything for me. So I got rid of the news. And I was the biggest purveyor of Sky. I was obsessed. My mum used to got me onto talk radio. That went. I used to watch Sky News. That went. Netflix. I remember, Breaking Bad, and don't get me wrong, sometimes you do need some non-committal TV, but I, occasionally will watch something that I'm interested in, but otherwise, I'm very picky with what I kind of expose myself to. So I almost have bulletproofed my mindset to make sure that I'm feeding myself, as opposed to and this is where I've kind of refrained from TikTok for such a long time. I just found it I don't know, like, compared to other social media platforms, I just thought it was almost like the fast food of social media. It just seemed to be about keeping people on the platform, but not really educating them. And however, since being on there, I've learned that, there's people that are sick of the system, that people are now wanting to, move to Bali or make money online, and they want to sell their house, and they realize, that the system is a trap, and it's designed to keep us in a state of fear. And the only way that we break out from that is if we stop subscribing to it. So I then realized also that the environment that I was in, that nothing was going to be able to grow there, because every time, that was the thing, I started to do consistency coaching. People had seen me change my life. However, the majority of people that were interested in consistency coaching were female. And then because the insecurities in the relationship, anything that I did outside the relationship was kind of frowned upon, that my wings were continually being clipped, to the point that it got very difficult for me to just do anything outside of the relationship. So I was just like, if I want to make something of myself, I'm going to need to leave. So I, reluctantly and painfully left, the family home and my two children. And, that hurt. And that's still a big regret to this day. But I had to choose myself, and fundamentally, I've been able to give them a better life outside of there, because I had a 6-figure business within 12 months of leaving there. COVID happened, and that was the other thing I'd learned from building those habits, was, if I can do this with health, surely I can just focus on wealth. And I was a lot into Gary V, not so much anymore. And you kind of go through phases of different people, and then you kind of it's almost like you graduate from them, and then you're ready for the next level. And he did a series called Trash Talk, where he literally takes stuff that's around the house and sells it on eBay. And I say to anyone, we've all got £1,000 around the house. So if anybody really wanted to invest in their in their own coaching, or their own skills, or their own education, you can do it. You're just choosing not to. Everyone has got £1,000 in their house. So I did that. So not only did I sell things that I was no longer using, and I'm also going through a purging process at the moment, of going from the old me to the new me. And there's a little bit of kind of, I mentioned it this morning, that you think like, right, you know what you're doing, and then you start to mourn your own life, and you then start to question, like, but then the universe doesn't allow you to go back. It keeps pushing you. So it's been a real 6-month process of going from March right up until kind of the present day. and as I said to you off camera, is like what spurred this spiritual awakening was an adverse reaction to the weight loss drug Mounjaro. So I kind of got suckered in, and everyone was kind of taking it, and it seemed to be like the. And one of my friends was like, this could be really good for you. And granted, I have lost a lot of weight, and a lot of the weight that I'd kind of put back on since COVID. However, there is no such thing as a free lunch. The side effects that I experienced, so I didn't really, and because I was buying it privately as opposed to through a doctor and doing it properly, I literally just went from 2.5 right up to 15 and then jumped off of it. I didn't realize I had to taper back off of it again. So my body went into some kind of withdrawal. And then this is what kicked off. I had hyper awareness, feeling of dread. And I started to have panic attacks. I literally thought I was dying. So as I say, it literally forced me to my knees. And thankfully, the first time around, I went to A&E, and then they referred me to my doctor. They medicated me pretty quickly. So I was then comfortable. I also then bought medication privately, just so I had it there, because I don't trust the doctor. They want to put you onto antidepressants, and I was like, I don't want to do that. The other thing was then they recommended that I go back on Mounjaro. So I then went back on Mounjaro, a lesser dose. As soon as that third dose hit, I literally was skyrocketed straight back to hyper awareness. I went back to the same doctor. They didn't medicate me, so they then just referred me to the mental health crisis team. What then happened, because I was living in one borough and my doctors was in another borough, I was just being passed from pillar to post. None of them could help me. I went 8 days with no sleep, and I literally compulsively had no I was so hyper aware. I even, and I don't drink, but I got so desperate that night nurse didn't work. I also had like stuff like Advil PM and NyQuil that I brought back from the States, where sometimes when I come back from the States, because I travel a lot or did travel a lot for business, I literally traveled every month. So on a night flight coming back, I would take 2 Advil PM, and it would knock me out, and I'd wake up the next day, and it would be easier for me to manage jet lag coming back from the US, because I spent a lot of time in Florida because my business was out there. So in 2020, I started a digital marketing agency. So that at the beginning of 2020, to go back to the Gary Vee story, I started to buy and sell stuff around the house, but I then also went to car boot sales, and I managed to buy these radios, and I think I paid £40 for them. I managed to turn them into £270, and I was like, okay, so there's something in this. Of course, then what happens is lockdown comes along, so then I can't then get out to car boot sales because they're all closed, but you can go to the supermarket. I then buy a drop shipping course that then teaches me how to buy and sell from AliExpress and sell it on eBay. I also, through that, learned that everything has a market. So I was buying and selling cleaning products. I was buying and selling hair clippers because if the barbers were closed. I would literally go to Asda at 8 a.m. in the morning when they started to put the stock out. I'd buy clippers for 20 quid, and I'd be selling them 60 quid by the time I'd even got home.
Wow.
So I'd so I worked out, and the majority of stuff at B&M. So if anybody, like even to this day, if anyone wants to earn 6 figures a year, you can just buy and sell stuff from B&M. So if I ever went like broke, that's where I would go back to. I know that I could go to B&M, and I could, and as I say, like they sell a lot of American toys, for example, that isn't readily available in the UK. So like action figures and stuff like that. So they have quite rare stuff, but also they have certain fragrances that they only sell in B&M that they don't elsewhere. But during that period that I was buying and selling all sorts of stuff. And then from there, I then invested into a digital marketing course. So I then learned Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and digital marketing. I then went into the real estate space. So I was like, and this is where childhood trauma comes into it. So I didn't get to go to Florida as a kid. and all of my friends did. And as a result of that, I was like, you know, as soon as I was old enough to take my kids to Orlando, I wanted to go every year because I didn't want them to feel like I did. And that was the same also like with brands. I've become a bit of a brand whore because I didn't get Reebok, I didn't get Nike. I was the high tech kid. So again, that childhood trauma of not feeling good enough and not feeling, you know,
Valuable.
like all of my friends had all of the good stuff. I didn't want my children to feel like that. So I then, you know, spoilt them and brought them up in kind of Ralph Lauren and stuff, and since, you know, bought Stone Island jackets for some of my children. And yeah, it's really interesting how that stuff in your childhood then translates, and then you overcompensate because you don't want them to feel what you felt as a child, you know. But yeah, so I then was like, so, you know, what is my niche going to be? And I was like, if I can help people move to Florida, which I wanted to do. Originally, my dream was to own a Florida villa. So I was like, let me get paid to learn the Florida property market. Let me help as many people in Florida and especially Orlando as possible. And I then just went after the real estate niche. Now, 2020 and 2021 was very, very busy. And I did that for kind of since, you know, that was the business that I just folded. So it was originally I'm Disturbance Media, which was like some meant something to me. And at the beginning, you kind of, you know, I was just helping friends out. I've got a friend who's an influencer. I was doing his marketing. He, you know, he trains Rochelle and is Rochelle Humes, Marcus Humes, some of the celebrities. So I then did some lead generation for him to, you know, we designed something called like his coaching program, online coaching program. So originally I kind of didn't have a niche, and then I was like, so what am I going to be passionate about doing every single day, and how can I get paid to go to Florida on business? So that's what I did. I then created a digital marketing agency that allowed me to do that. Then from, you know, you learn how to generate leads, and then it's like, so how do you turn these leads into appointments? We then had appointment setters that overseas. So I had like an overseas call center in the Philippines that would then convert these leads into appointments, and then people would buy the system for a year. And then, of course, along comes AI. So now then AI can do texting, WhatsApp, email, and voice as well. So then I then started not only real estate appointments, but also the AI agency. So AI agency was multi-niche, and then real estate appointments was just for the real estate niche. And then, as I say, through my spiritual awakening, I was like, okay, so, you know, yes, it's great that we're outsourcing a lot of to AI, but it's now more important than ever that we focus on connection, humanity, and the divine, and we don't allow AI to disconnect us. And I felt maybe, you know, that I'm not working for the devil, but, you know, I'm doing that, maybe not doing the right thing. That we should be using AI more consciously as opposed to. And I had got into a thing of chasing money, and even the people that I was attracting into my business, it was just it became apparent that it was about the money and not the passion. So it was so I and through this process, it, as I say, it kind of it made me burn it to the ground, to the point it was just like, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing, and you know it, and this is, you know. And it interestingly, I don't know if you've ever experienced plant medicine or ayahuasca. Well, I did it in 2023, so in September. And what I experienced was, one, this 99% of reality, which is all around us at all times. Like literally the veil comes down of the five senses, and you can see everything everywhere, and everything is breathing together, and it's like we are all connected. And I also experienced, I could literally see like a tree in the distance that I wouldn't normally be able to see, but almost like telescopically through this energy field. So I was like, oh wow, so we can actually send information through this, and it communicates with you as well, like via telepathy. So it just like implants, like you, it's almost like downloads. Bear with me. I think this is the Amazon shopper.
It's all right. Happens
Thank
so
you so
much.
sir. I'll sort that in a minute. I'm just on a podcast, all right? No problem. Thank you, mate. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
That's our Amazon shopping arriving.
Excellent. Some things, you know what, even from the kind of technical standpoint, whether it's technology or the development of technology, which is now AI and supercomputers, and it is that it can help us in our day-to-day life. It can bring us balance. It can bring more time for ourselves to spend with our family doing the things that we love. And we are in that in-between stage of AI being quite intense on everyone and people realizing that actually we quite like the human touch. We like the human touch when it makes mistakes as well, because that's what humanity is. It's not polished or perfect.
No, yeah, and that's the realization that I came to, like through all of this. I then started to meditate on it, and I was just like, you're 100% right. I think it's one, it's to be used more consciously. Two, it's to outsource the tasks that maybe that we don't want to do, so we can spend more time together with those. And but I felt more called to share my message and what I was going through. Two, I started to experience kind of UAP/orbs, and
Seen some of your videos.
yeah. So I found that really interesting because it almost kind of, and hence why the path is really interesting. So like an old flame, very chaotic relationship, very passionate, but looking back, maybe was an angel who has sadly passed now, introduced me to Kabbalah and gave me this knowledge. And I always kind of, and I've still kind of got the red string now, and I still, use the 72 names of God, and still turn to some of the books. Then doing ayahuasca, which then confirmed everything that I'd learned in Kabbalah. So I was like, okay, so like this is real. And it because some people are like, are you seeing reality how it really is, or is it just a figment of your imagination? And it felt to me like, one, it was reality as it really is, and two, God is everything, everywhere, connected at all times. Everything is perfect, and we are manifesting and creating with every thought, feeling, and action. Hence why I really resonated with your happiness post that I looked at, and thinking about, right, and I know it's impossible, but where we have to become more conscious is that we have to start coming from a place of love and service and connection, as opposed to separation, ego, and what's in it for me, and this is the journey that I'm now on, to the point it's like, I've got all the money and all of the designer clothes, all of the sunglasses, and I'm still been able to get extremely depressed and be in bed for weeks and being, under the mental health crisis team, completely lose my marbles. And, they labeled me with psychosis. And part of me understands why they did that. But the other part is, I don't think our doctors really understand kind of the spiritual stuff. They're not really equipped to deal with it. And yeah, that, like, and I don't dare them say, look, I've got all, because I got into meditation. I got into the gateway tapes. I don't know if you've done the Monroe Institute gateway tapes. So that really allows you to explore consciousness, and it puts you into, and again, that, there's been published articles on the CIA website. It's called Project Stargate, and that's how I discovered it. And I was like, oh wow, these are actually available. And then what they had is they had a creator weekend, or a creator week, I think, where they sent lots of YouTube creators to go and experience it. And they did remote viewing, they did, and they explored consciousness. Some had out of body experiences, and proved that we are more than just our physical bodies. And I know you spoke a little bit about your past life and future life regressions.
Yes. Yeah. They're you've you've covered a lot. I do want to return back to the spiritual health and mental health.
Hmm.
They are the that and that's been much of my journey as well. For my self-healing journey is the not allowing labels to stop me from moving through deep pain and emotions and traumas that like to bubble up to the surface, but not to push them away, not to medicate so I can't resolve them at a more in a more conscious and aware state. I totally support anyone wherever they are on their journey as to the best steps for them to take, but also not to allow others, particularly those with um, titles in front of their name,
Hmm.
to make people feel like I need to take this prescription in order to feel better. That's not the one place to find peace. Is like you have to go within, you have to go through this whole process. Absolutely everything that you said. I've not read the Kabbalah. I've not actually not read many spiritual books because I feel like I've read a few, the things more on the psychology point, because I really felt like I needed to heal my mind at a deep space. And
Hmm.
a lot of the experiences that I had were deeply spiritual, and very testing at times, extremely testing at times. I'm sure if there were points I would get slapped with similar, um, labels in the point
Yeah.
of having quite painful episodes. But
Yeah.
I didn't allow. Luckily, I had the right people and probably the right person that was with me, who I found my healer, and I'm still in contact with her now, and I still work with her because it's a continuous thing. It's not someone that I lent on. I
Hmm.
would have regular sessions that would help me balance in between the work that I was doing, but I also recognize now some of the things that I was doing, including things like doing past life regressions, but not doing it in a safe, peaceful container with someone that was professional. And I'm just saying that now I do it professionally. That's the
Yeah.
gift I give to others. But when I look back at the times and experiences that I had doing it, traversing through my timeline, I was picking up more karma, more pain and suffering, whether it was mine or not. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, it damn near broke me. And I had to take really grounding steps, and that were productive as well, not destructive, not going down a route that wasn't um, making efforts to actually have something in my life, to build something, to build a business that could help others, but not just stay stuck in the what happened in the past, stay stuck in a victim consciousness, stay stuck feeling angry at people. Because if you keep staying in that energy, all you're going to do is keep creating the same thing. I know we've both been through it, those our paths in different ways, but come to the same conclusion of the reason why I say about tuning your frequency to love. And sometimes people don't know what love truly feels like. But I remember the points when I couldn't take the pain anymore. And I remember saying to God, just please take this pain. I surrender it. I give it to transmute it because I can't process this anymore. There's it's hurting me holding on to this. And I just want to let go of it. And doing that repetitively, um, when it came up, along with other things as well, but that, your inner, what you speak in your mind to yourself, and the words that come out of your mouth, and the actions and the inactions that you take, all all decide the path that you are living and attracting. The same thing for you when you were growing up is your environment. It's hard to overcome an environment if it is such a profound force around you that you can't get away from it. And a
Mm.
lot of the time is if I've done this several times, I've moved location. if the space that you're in is not serving you, and it's also bolstering up bad habits, it is really important to really shake things up, like change, move, change job, move, maybe change career,
Yeah.
take a step back, change location where you live, change your friends, or start tuning yourself to people that are productive, people that are constructive, that have their own businesses, that you can better yourself. Exactly that. Fill your heart, fill your space and your mind with things that will better the world, not to go down rabbit holes, not to get angry about things that you're just finding out about, all these veils, because there is a lot of information and there is a massive knowledge gap that society is in. But it's also important not to go down too many rabbit holes, because that's just another trap of feeling like a victim, because you're unable to have any change on the situation. So it
Yeah.
is a case of, what can I do to have a beneficial effect for myself and for the world? And that's the pivot. Great, you've got the awakening point now. You've woken up. Things are revealing to you that they weren't things. Things aren't as they seem, and there's way more than our five senses. 108 healing senses did also come from that, because there is more than what you see and experience and touch and see and sense, and then you get into the sense and the knowing. And those things are important, and those are the senses that have been dampened down, because we've been taught not to listen or trust to ourselves. We've been taught to listen and obey authority outside of ourselves, rather than connecting to our inner authority through our hearts. That's where pure love comes through. That's where source, that's where the creation of all that is comes through your heart. Your heart is a magnetic field that is vast inside, and you can walk into a room and just know that something's off. Your body is tuned. It's such an incredible divine piece of technology, and these are the times that we're starting to tune into ourselves and our environments and become more aware of what's actually happening around us, putting down the screens, putting down the distractions, putting down the drama, stepping away from it, and starting to recognize, what is it that I actually want to live in life? How do I want to live? Do I want to have a loving, healthy relationship which is balanced and reciprocated on both ways? You want to build a happy family unit. You want to have a successful, prosperous career, and possibly a legacy that you can also hand over to your children, and those that after you've passed, how's the world going to be changed after you've gone? Like, these are some of the biggest conscious awareness pieces that we could all start thinking and feeling into. Okay, you don't have to do it all tomorrow, but it's something to consider. Like, and you can use AI to support you. I use AI a lot in what I do, because it's like an extension of a work team, basically.
For sure.
But also knowing that me writing my book, I have to do that all. That's all me. I can't allow AI to come in. Maybe if there's any
It can give you some structure and it can give
rephrasing.
you some ideas, but as long as
Yeah,
you it's your personal experience and it's in your tongue,
mine. Yeah. So there's balance. I'm sorry, I can't remember what you said before I started talking, but
No, that's okay. I mean, it all ties in,
yeah.
because I mentioned about, past life regressions, which allowed you
Mm,
to, share what you do, and the five senses, and the reality beyond that. So I
mm,
was saying that I'd kind of graduated from Kabbalah, that initially gave me the knowledge of the five, and I remember they used to sell Kabbalah water, and I was just like, this is a scam. And now I understand consciousness,
mm.
and the energy in which things are, like I vortex my water now, put remineralize it with salt,
Yeah.
and I I got scorned on spiritual TikTok for using the word bless, because apparently it means be less. But I lovingly and lovingly accept my water and that meat and vegetables and all my relationship with insects, for example. So I got this download that insects are here just to see how we treat them. And once we treat them as an extension of us, then we will ascend. Then we will then start to realize our fullest, truest, loving. And, as I mentioned to you before, I've kind of through Kabbalah, then through ayahuasca, then I haven't done DMT, but I've kind of looked into it, because the next step up from ayahuasca is DMT 5-MeO, and that puts you to that puts you to the creation of reality. So it puts you some people have a whiteout where there's nothing; it's just pure white, but you shoot up out of your body. And I went down that, I wouldn't say a rabbit hole, but started to kind of research other people's experiences. Some people have some harrowing experiences on ayahuasca, and I was very lucky in that I'm kind of very positive, and as I said to you before, learned how to create this vortex of positivity, of this exercise, affirmations, because 95% of our thoughts are the same from the day before, and most of us live 75 years of our life the same year 75 times and call it life. Where once I discovered how to create my own reality, I was like, I'm going to live my life to the fullest, to the point that I literally traveled up until I lost the plot or had my spiritual awakening, depends who you ask. I traveled every single month, apart from when my partner was pregnant and then she gave birth, and then I flew out to Tulum in the September. He was born in the August, and then I went for the ayahuasca ceremony, and it was through that then got me looking into other UAP, DMT, other entities beyond our five senses, because other people, and I had experienced what I envisaged as God, where other people experience kind of snakes, in insects, etc., etc. So I then started to learn from other people's experiences. So I found it really fascinating. So and now kind of science is starting to catch up with this quantum science of there being consciousness, the field, and what is projecting it, etc., etc., and it's us at all times. And once we realize that we create our reality, and again, this is what ayahuasca showed me in real time. I could think positively, and there would be flowers blooming, all of these bright clouds and colors, and then I would think dark things, and then the guy that I was with would start to get erratic and start to turn against me, and I was like, oh wow, so I'm doing this in real time. And even I probably think that I left slightly before I should have, because when I got outside, I then my taxi driver came to pick me up, and I as a kid, and I didn't really understand it until this ayahuasca trip. I used to will the car to crash. I used to have these terrible thoughts that I couldn't control. And during this ayahuasca trip, as I was coming down, as I was going back to my apartment, I literally was willing the car to crash, and I don't know if it was happening, but in my head, we would veer into the oncoming traffic, and then I would like not pay attention to it, take deep breaths, and think positive thoughts, and then we would straighten up again. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm creating this. Like, this is wild. So it literally taught me we are exactly what we think we are, and two, we create our reality. So then, as I say, I then traveled extensively. So went out to the Philippines, New York, Toronto. I think that in 2023 I did Dubai. I did kind of 8 cities in the first 6 months of the year, and then Orlando and Miami. I discovered Miami, and then I fell in love with a place called Hollywood, Florida. I'm obsessed with sunrises. So like the sunrise is my thing. So we went out to the Bahamas and we stayed in this place called Hollywood, and we watched the sunrise, and we went down onto and I was like, this is it. So I literally went there. I went from wanting a Orlando villa to I want a beachfront condo. So that's like the next goal. It's literally on my I can't show it because I'm on my I'm on the phone that I've got it on, but on my goal board on my phone is this the sunrise that I went and viewed from this condo. But yeah, I then went there every single month for probably about a year. So that was where I would go and focus. I would come back and I would shop for my kids as if they were there. I even took my son out I took him to Orlando and then Miami. But yeah, so then coming into this year, as I say, I then, but October of last year, start the Mount Jaro, and then by the March, go completely into crisis. So that's where everything started to start. But also through this, hence why I think it's spiritual. During the ayahuasca retreat, it showed me you're subscribing to your back pain. Like, because I had sciatica for years, and they think that it's a fear when anything related to your back is that you don't trust yourself to support yourself, which also ties into the behavior and where I was giving my ex-wife my bank card and allowing her to make all the financial decisions because I didn't trust myself. And that's kind of what it taught me. So my biggest tikkun or my soul correction was, one, to establish my independence and become myself, even though, as I said, as I started to do that, my wings were being clipped to the point that I then had to move out and live on my own, and then establish myself by myself and created a business where I had freedom and I wasn't being controlled by anyone. And then the next step was I then, as I say, got into a place where I was making a lot of money, and I'd worked out this vortex of creating positive energy, going and living these experiences, wearing the clothes, turning up as because that's the other thing ayahuasca showed me, is that we are limitless, godlike creators. It's up to us how much like God we become. We either give the energy to, we can't do it and this isn't me, or I'm going to do this no matter what and this is what I'm going to grow into. So I was like, right, so I need to say yes to everything. I went to Scientology. I got kicked out within a month.
You got kicked out?
I got a PT. I then started to travel every single month. So I was like living like my fullest, best life. And also, I rented a VIP box for Noel Gallagher for all of my friends. That was 5K. And then I was taking my children to a VIP box for Tottenham, and then bought, tickets in the stands, and, just living life to excess and just wanting to experience as much of life as possible. And what then happened through the Mount Jaro was it fried my nervous system. So no amount of efforting and what I'd worked out how to create this success and this euphoria no longer worked. So I literally, from the March to I think probably May or June, I was literally kind of like zombified to the point that I then was admitted to hospital, diagnosed with psychosis, told that I was a risk to my son and wasn't able to have him by myself, like a safeguarding risk, etc., etc. And then that's where I kind of then went through the process of like, and again, I think this was happening for me now, but during it was harrowing because the suicidal ideation, and looking online, there was people on Reddit, also people on TikTok as well. I've done a lot of research since, and there are other people, and I was like, maybe this is by design. People, we didn't get them on COVID, so we'll get them on the fat shot, and then we'll give them terrible, side effects. But thankfully it looks like it's in the minority, and what happens if you're a sensitive person, or it can activate some kind of hypoglycemic event which gives you this overwhelming feeling of dread, absolutely harrowing, to the point that I've on numerous occasions was suicidal. but also couldn't do anything about it. So and as I mentioned before, I don't drink, but it got to the point, night nurse didn't work, sleeping aids didn't work. I bought a bottle of Malibu and drank that, and normally that would blackout drunk me, but I was so frenetic that it mellowed the feeling. However, I still couldn't sleep, and they wouldn't medicate me, to the point that I then was told, oh, you have to go to the mental health crisis team. So I went to the mental health crisis team, and they said, oh, we don't have funding for you because your doctors is still in Islington and you're living in a different borough. So again, they did pass the buck, and it was 8 days no sleep. And then I did the whole thing cleaning the park. I was completely like away with the fairies. And so I then went to the train station, and I, out of disgust, I was like, I called 111 and was like, I just want to make you aware that you have failed me. Like, I've done everything that you've asked me. I'm under the mental health crisis team. This one won't see me. This one won't see me. They then talk me off the platform, and thankfully they get somebody to come out and see me, and they say, look, they had a solution, why haven't they just given you that solution? They then put in a complaint to the doctors. They then do medicate me, and I was relieved, because obviously I was going through it and I had no control over it. And also the other thing was, it, and this is what has come out of it essentially, is like, as painful as it was, it has made me surrender. So, because I said, look, I'm doing green juices, I'm doing single food ingredients, I'm doing all of the right things. I even got to the point I started to run again. You know, because after that I was extremely exhausted. I got taken into hospital. They then started me on therapy. I then had talking therapies. I had to go to classes and stuff, and then they would check in with me every 2 to 3 days. And but fundamentally, all they want to do is push you onto antidepressants. And I was like, I don't want to. I've just, the other thing that came out of this was, I was taking tramadol since having I was taking tramadol for 6+ years because of the back pain. And this is what ayahuasca showed me. It's like, you're subscribing to that program. You don't need the pain relief. Like, you just have to decide that you're healed. And through the spiritual awakening, I was then called upon to do the work that I was told that I needed to do. So it's almost like it came out and made me do the work. So I'm now kind of opiate free, where I don't take tramadol. I can get by on ibuprofen and paracetamol, but fundamentally most days is stretching and running and eating well. So it has like changed. And now, as I said to you before, I'm now taking magnesium instead of the diazepam, but still, as I say, I did, like last week with my birthday, completely malfunctioned. You know, and it like success, healing is a process of like a couple of days, you're back on top of, you know, top of the world, and you think you know what you're doing. And then my birthday came along, and again, I think there's some kind of trauma related to my birthday again, of I'm impossible to buy for. Again, I don't think, you know, I don't know what it is, if it's the awkwardness, maybe where my parents had divorced when I was 6, so I then had to choose what parent I wanted to spend Christmas and birthdays with. And I found that it was like, this is your problem to solve, why are you putting it on me? So when I got to my teens and I was drinking and going out for 2 days, I would then disappear on the night before my birthday, and come in the day after my birthday, so I didn't have to deal with it. So like every time I was asked to, you know, so while I was a child, that's what I had to do, and I found it extremely difficult. So Christmas isn't like any big things. I just really found, one, socially awkward, and I 100% think I'm on the spectrum, but two, just didn't want to deal with them. And again, just last week was my birthday, and I completely malfunctioned. I couldn't decide what restaurant to go to. Didn't know what I'm very good at satisfying myself, where I, you know, I'm happy to treat myself a lot any other day, but on my birthday, like my birthday the year before, we went out to Bicester, and I literally took my partner shopping, as opposed to, like, you know, doing something for my birthday. So it was like I made it about somebody else instead of it was just something energetically about that day, and I just found it really difficult, you know. So But yeah, to conclude, kind of, healing is not a straight line. So like, I'm still kind of coming out of it, and it was a nurse, because I was like, I'm doing all of the right things, why am I kind of not fixed yet? And it was like, Jamie, it took you 8 months to get to this point of you taking this thing, and your gut is your second brain, and it has fried your nervous system to the point that no amount of efforting, no green juices, no supplements, no because that was the other thing, the running, which would normally give me endorphins, was actually manifesting in anxious energy because my nervous system was fried.
It's already fried,
Yeah, so I was
too much stress.
so I then was like, I was capping myself at 5K, which would kind of make me feel okay. And what I was trying to do was essentially help me sleep peacefully. But what it would do instead was then, and the other thing is with the ADHD, with the hyperfixation, I was then hyperfixating on dark thoughts that had manifested through this thing, instead of, so my reality then started to completely shift, where I was, and quite often I would rather knock myself out with the medication that they gave me, as opposed to being awake and feeling this, because it was all too much for me. So thankfully we are now, as I say, look, we are now kind of 6 months down the line, and hopefully by October that will be a whole year, and I should be out of the woods by then. But who knows? As I say, it's, it is a process. I am in a much better place, but I do feel obliged to, one, share what I'm going through, two, help as many other people as possible. And as I say, it's really shifted my focus of, earning as much money as possible, and to really, let's help as many people as possible. And this is part of it, finding our tribe, being able to come onto a new platform that I've never been on before, really frowned upon it, but it's a really great way of finding like-minded people, because it almost pushes your content to those people. And a lot of accounts seem to be nameless, faceless, and some of them are trolls, but there are some genuine people, and we've managed to connect. So the universe is good.
It is good. And first, I want to congratulate you for just choosing yourself and choosing love as your compass. Whatever that looks like on your journey, I really want you to honor yourself, and I recognize what a hard, challenging journey it is, and it can be, but that consistently turning up for yourself and knowing that there is more to life than what has happened or how you might be feeling in that moment, and doing what you can, or just resting and allowing your body to regenerate, and pull negative thoughts from your body, from your mind, and replace it with good ones, is massively part of this deep self-healing, which a lot of people don't want to touch. But I feel like as the time goes on, people are waking up. They're being forced to wake up to their realities. They're being forced to truly be honest with themselves as to what's happening in their life, and do they actually want to continue it. So thank you, and keep making your incredible content, because it will, and it does, and it will continue to help those that are going through it. And you are inspiring me as well to position my content in a way that can reach more people, because that's ultimately what it's all about. It's not a this is right, this is wrong. It's just a point of reference. If this feels right in this moment, take it, run with it, see how you get on with it. And if it doesn't fly, then just let it go. And over the years, I've found different techniques and things, been regimented, and then I end up creating my own grooves, my own paths to follow, which are fantastic in those moments. And it does change, and sometimes we can cha in life, and that's all right, especially around birthdays. I think that's a particularly it can be a 2 steps back, 1 step forward. I've had it on my birthdays as well. So, and that is around, and you said it was, there was a core trauma wound that happens from birth, maybe not from birth, but there's a point in time, whether it's this lifetime a past lifetime, if you're open to it, or even your ancestors, if they've experienced similar, and then it's come to you to be like, I'll be able to clear this for the family bloodline. Yeah, for all of us. And we do it in such a spectacular way. And it's raw and it's messy, and people will want to cast judgments and labels upon you. But all you have to do is keep saying to myself, I choose love. I'm not choosing to go down this dark fear, whatever route it is. I choose love. I choose light as my beacon, and I have faith that if I keep turning up for myself, even if the negative thoughts, the intrusive thoughts want to come in, acknowledge them, release them, replace them with something that is beautiful, is positive. And if you don't have any of that, just pick a color that resonates in that moment and put it in yourself, because we're having to use energetic practices to go deeper than just therapy, than just medication, just journaling, or doing The Secret. There's so many levels. But it's all about keeping it simple, and you're doing it in such a beautiful way, and you're a real inspiration as well. So I really hope, in fact, I trust and I know that what you've shared today will help a lot of people as well. I'm sure some of the things I've mentioned too, but same definitely. Path, different face.
It's really taught me to surrender, that it like, and for me, being a high achiever, where I force my will into reality, and being a reality creator, knowing how it works. So all I need to do is generate the positive feeling, then I take inspired action and I force my will into reality. I wasn't able to do that and haven't been able to do that. So I've had to learn how to deal with it in a completely different way. And it's literally having to surrender and handing it over to God. And, ironically, I had 3 or 4 different kind of people from a church that randomly, like, somebody I bumped into 3 days in a row, and I was just like, what are you here to teach me? We're all students, we're all teachers. What's the message? And she's like, well, I go to this church, and could I pray for you? So and I've always been very, very standoffish about religion, and I still am. I think spirituality and I think Christ consciousness lives within us all, and I think that's the real message. I don't think it's supposed to be used for judgment and fear, and you live your life like this, otherwise you're going to hell. We create heaven and hell up here, and it's really allowed me to reframe life of how we think, this hustle culture, and it doesn't have to be like that. So it's like, I'm going to get paid to be myself. That's the mission. So how can I serve? What do I know? Who can I be? And how can I show up for others? And I'm just going with the flow. So I've started to record on YouTube, and again TikTok, come off of all other platforms that relate to the old me, so I can really step into this newest version, speak my truth unapologetically, and then eventually be able to transfer all of that into the other platforms once I've really found my voice, my tribe, my audience, my my gang. And and because on Facebook, it's all of the people that you actually know that you wish you didn't. And then Instagram is all of the people that you don't know but are really cool. And then TikTok, I'm still trying to work out. And then YouTube is super brand new to me. Originally it was podcasts, and then I started to do some bits around the ayahuasca experience, because that was really profound. And now I'm kind of sharing, going from mental health crisis back to healing and back to success, but in a completely more balanced way. I'm now looking after my son majority of the time, as we've purged people out of our life, like my mother-in-law, for example. We've randomly just stopped talking to her. There was an incident, so we are now just allowing all of this stuff to happen, as opposed to fighting and trying to control things. We are just letting go, handing it all over, surrendering, relax, release, re-intend, and you know, whatever will be will be.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, I would say, do you have any final words to conclude our episode for today? Because it's been fabulous so far.
No, I think that's really it. It's that, you know, everyone is going to find their way in their own time. We can't really make anyone change. They have to want it for themselves. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's either pain or pleasure. We either want to move towards pleasure or away from pain. And as I say, quite often we can look back on our most painful periods, like what I'm going through, gone through the hardest parts, but still kind of coming out of it and still having wobbles as I navigate this new version of me and trying to work out what it is I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. Is to just trust the process. And you know, it's the experience and the journey of the, you know, I liken it to the hero's arc. It's, you know, everyone, you get it in most successful people, in that they have it all and then they lose it all, and then they work, you know, all of the wrongs that they discovered, you know, where they kind of maybe gave into the ego, and now I want to do something that's more soul aligned and more mission led. So yeah, it's really about that. And you know, wherever you are at in your journey, whether you're still unaware of your unconscious behavior, I guess it's just becoming aware, and then, you know, then starting to make those changes. But some people will do it this lifetime, some people won't, and that's okay. Yeah, you just have to meet people, tell your truth, and those people that are ready to hear will hear. And you know, and that's how we connected, so it's evidently working.
Yeah. I know, you know what? Everything that you said, I'm like, yep. Yeah, it all resonates with my path as well. And I totally agree that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And then those times when you're trying to force people, it never works. So it is that, find peace in surrendering and just let it be, give it to God, to source, to love, to universe, whatever label people feel most resonant with, and just know that it will be taken care of for the highest for all concerned. And you know, and I those are the kinds of things I feel when I'm moving through life, and I know that I can't do anything other than just pray and let it go.
For
So
sure. God doesn't send us things we can't handle. We've survived every single one of, you know, the tests so far. So as long as we
yeah,
keep, you know, you know, as I said more recently, it's like, you know, the days that I could run, I ran, and then the days that I couldn't, I would walk, and the days that I
yeah,
couldn't, then I would crawl, and then the days that I couldn't crawl, I literally would retire to bed, you know. And it's just about being kind to yourself in those times and not feel like you have to be doing something when you've, you know, been so used to doing that. And as I say, then you start to mourn that stuff and you start to feel guilty for being unproductive. But this is part of the regeneration process. This is the part of doing things differently, and you know, moving differently and showing up differently, and you know, from a place of love and a place of healing. Because as I said previously, when I was in that frenetic energy, I didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't want to project on anyone. I was clumsy. I could feel like myself was off. So when I got like that, I would rather be, you know, asleep. Or I even said to my partner, I'm going to go and stay away somewhere else for a while until I can kind of deal with this, because I'm finding it difficult to deal with myself. And you know, thankfully, like what you were saying, I think you found your person. Thankfully, I found mine too.
yeah. Love will always find you when you choose love for yourself and you tune your reality to it. We get the mirror reflection of ourselves back to us. And if we hold that love without conditions, we will attract that as well. And that deep acceptance. That's what love truly is. It's a real deep acceptance. And I'm really happy to hear that you're moving through it with grace and you're being supported. Not everyone has that luxury of a support network, but anyone that's listening and doesn't have a support network, just know that even reaching out on this platform or connecting to God through your own heart, like that's a really powerful place to be. And to when you start to learn about yourself more, that space feels less painful, and it's more like aligning you with your own divinity. So yeah, it can be challenging and feel like a lonely road, but actually it can be a revelation within itself, because you find yourself through the quiet, through the not absorbing other people's energies, just really coming back to yourself. I did similar as well. I needed to have separation from people at different points on my journey, and it was beneficial. And I am where I am now, who I am now, because I had that experience, and I know what getting to the edge is like, and not wanting to be here. I've had that several occasions, and I know that I don't want to feel like that. So I have to tune myself and walk the path where love is in every step that I take, and every thought that I have, and every word that I speak. And if I make a mistake, I'll put my hands up and say, I'm really sorry, I was XYZ. So that's important. Even if we do the cha-cha-cha and might go back a step, it's just that self-reflection and that honesty with yourself and those around you. Though consistently doing that, it will bring peace, it will bring clarity, and tune your inner guidance as to what's the direction I want to be living my life from. And it rolls from there. So yeah, thank you, Jamie. Really appreciate you coming on today. And if you're interested in, let's do a one-to-one. I'd be happy to share a gift with you to help relieve the pain from your past. So let's connect after this, and we'll organize a time, because those are the kinds of things that this timeline healing that I've experienced on my journey really helped to dissolve the traumas that had been wanting to repeat or had been repeating, and just kind of rewriting the script so you can actually live the life in peace, in love, in purpose.
Cool.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
Yes. And how can people contact you? What's the best way?
Well, I'm usually on Instagram, Jamie C. Nicholas. However, that's all deactivated at the moment. So it's jamie.c.nicholas on TikTok, and Jamie C. Nicholas on YouTube. Fabulous.
So go and connect with Jamie, and I will definitely be keeping up to date with your interesting videos around health and spirituality and UAPs. Nice to hear your little one in the back. And you running with your bubba. I enjoy your happy. You look so happy when you're running. So
yeah, I do enjoy it. I must admit, as soon as I had my back operation, that was the first thing I wanted to do. So literally, they said I shouldn't do any exercise for like 12 weeks, and I think I lasted 4 before I flew out to Miami. And by the end of 2 weeks in Miami, I was running 5K again.
Wow.
So a little bit naughty, but mind over matter, and when you do what you love, I just could not wait. I do, and it's like it's the ultimate mindfulness. Like you're just concentrating on trying not to die when you're running. So yeah, that's my thing.
Bless you. Oh well, never give up. That's all I heard.
Yeah.
And be consistent with yourself and what makes you happy and brings you joy in life. So that's a very good space to run towards.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for everyone who's still hanging around. If you're interested, I have recently just done a future vision activation 3-part journey, and it went through grounding and balancing yourself through energetic practices, also to clear your energy field and help, especially if you're particularly sensitive and pick up other people's emotions. This is a good one for those. I mean, it's good for everyone. The second part was going back to release any blocks, whatever part in time that was from. And then the third part was about connecting to your future self and getting clarity, wisdom, and insight about your next best steps. So that's my new workshop that you can just do off the shelf, and you can also work one-to-one with me. And I'm writing a book right now, so if that sounds interesting, you can sign up to the mailing list or just start following, so for more information to come. So those are all of the exciting things from my end that I'm sharing with the world. And yeah, if you would like this video and you want to share it with friends that you feel could help them and assist them on their journeys, please do so. We want to share solutions more than problems in this world, so more solutions than problems. Okay, so thanks for now, and see you in the next episode this week, actually on Wednesday, with the lovely Jono. All right, lots of love, and see you all soon.
Take care. Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.